it's time for some more car stuff. So it's a nice balmy 100 degrees out today. So what better time than to work in direct sunlight on the F100. We went through on the previous video putting the lift kit on the front of this thing. We got ride height where we want it. We're very close to getting this thing back on the road running and driving as a legitimate car you could take to the store. The last really big thing we've got to do to make this car what I would consider a drivable vehicle, roadworthy, is brakes. Gravity bled everything yesterday off camera, and as soon as I did that, I pumped the pedal a couple times, built up great pressure, then I came out here and looked, and the brake master is leaking out of the rear of the brake master between the master cylinder and the booster. So we've got bad master cylinder. Drag is, it's almost a brand new master cylinder. So when somebody changed it, they either put in the wrong one, maybe they put in the one for the manual brakes instead of the power brakes, and it blew it out, which is my guess. Or it's possible those lines being so swollen in the front, if they were restricted where they were letting the pressure in but not out, maybe it just built up so much pressure in this thing that it blew the seal out the back. I'm not sure, but I know this one's bad. So 75 bucks later, we got ourselves a new one, and that is about to go in. So we're gonna unbolt this bad boy. It looks like all the lines should be easy enough to remove. I went ahead and sprayed a bunch of WD-40 on everything yesterday in anticipation. So we're gonna try and crack this off, get the new master on, bleed it again, and see if we've got brakes. I have a sneaking suspicion that the front calipers might also be either frozen or locked up. I'm hoping that just with a couple good stops and driving it around, they'll free up if they're just a little bit frozen. But if they're locked up, then we got to do those as well. But one thing at a time, one expense at a time. We know this is bad. Let's start here and let's see what we end up with. We're going to do this, try and get the brakes going, and then try and tootle this thing around. I need to put some gas in it because I don't know how old the gas is that's in it. It came with it, and I haven't put any in yet. And I've been test firing and running this thing a lot. So we're going to try and tune on the carb just a little bit, enough to get it to run okay-ish. And there's a gas station a couple blocks away. We're going to put some fresh fuel in this thing and see what happens. So here we go. So try and loosen the lines up first, just get them cracked loose, and then we'll actually unbolt the master cylinder. So we're going to get on these and see if we can get them to go without spinning and breaking the lines. So far so good. That one's coming right off. It's good enough there. Just want it loose. Do the one size fits all for this big one in the back. That one's going to go just fine as well. It's spinning. Excellent. That's the scariest part of any brake job, because if these things are sticking bad enough, it'll try and twist and break the line off when you go to remove the master cylinder. Well, maybe not all, but a lot of us have been there, and it's no fun, but sometimes it's just the way it is. I like to spray and juice them up at least the night before. I had to special order my master cylinder from O'Reilly's, so gave me a day in advance anyway. So I was able to spray, juice them down. The next day they came in and I was able to get it yanked off. But it's always good if you can to give it some lubricity ahead of time. Just save yourself the heartache. 9/16 is the ticket. double wrench trick. This really does not look old at all. This cover's definitely new, and you can tell because it's not even totally rusted. Some of this still has that new pot metal look to it. So I think somebody changed this right before I got a hold of it. And I think, again, either it's the wrong one, I don't know, or something's up with it. But we're gonna yank it off and see if we can't figure out what's what here. Booster looks pretty rough too, so once this is all said and done, we may want to change that bad boy out too. As soon as you look at this thing, you find the next thing you need to change. It's one of those cheap projects that costs a lot, you know. And master cylinder is out. You can see that it was leaking from the bottom of the piston here. Alright, time for new master cylinder install. First, we're going to clean up this push rod because it's pretty gnarly. We're going to get a wire brush and clean this stuff up real fast. It's raining on and off every 5 minutes, so that's sweet. Still about 100 degrees though. Clean this thing up. I got some steel wool. We're just gonna try and clean up this inner surface where the bore meets. And we're not gonna get this stuff perfect, but we want a good seal. We don't want anything sticking. It needs to at least be somewhat clean. Great. If you ever want to know what Florida's like, that's pretty much it. Still real hot, but it's cooling down. This is dry. Now, before we connect the lines, we want to go ahead and fill this thing up. Well, I guess we're not really truck bleeding it, but we'll call it, or bench bleeding it, we'll call it truck bleeding it. And then we'll throw it back together. Now it's just barely drizzling. Sun's back out. Humidity's at about 105%. Just gonna fill both of these all the way up. We're real close to all the way up anyway. Just place the cover back on so we don't get any water in there. Alright, let's give it a couple pumps. Now, we're going to go ahead and thread these lines back in, starting with the front. We're going to go ahead and in too then. Oh yeah, we got an adapter-rooney here. That's what it is. Looks like this guy needs to go in here. Let's call that good. Let's top it back up. And let's spray and clean. Since these lines have had plenty of air in them now, we're gonna have to re-crack and re-bleed our lines, and then we'll see what we end up with. And now we crawl underneath while it's all wet to bleed the brakes. Anytime you do anything with a new brake master, those that know, doesn't matter how clean you leave it, it will rust immediately. So, what we're gonna do is give her a little help. So, it's not immediately rusty. I got some silver that should look pretty close to what it looks like now. Give it a hit, protect on it a little bit. Put the old lid on so we can swap them back, and then the lid will still look nice. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be better than rust. Alright, and that's that. We got the fancy new master cylinder in. Got it painted up to keep it from rusting away. Got everything bled. I gravity bled all the lines. Let them run for a while. Topped everything off. Closed them back up. I went around. I didn't show it, but I hit with the brake clean at all of the wheels and just cleaned up all of that brake fluid that was dripping down, so it's not going to mess up rims, anything else. So got everything cleaned up, buttoned up. We're going to put some tools away now. And then brakes we're calling done enough to test. Calipers are still in question, but next step is going to be, as long as this weather allows it, we're going to go ahead and try and tinker on this carb a little bit, get it to where it's happy enough to drive around the block, and give this thing a couple pumps and see what she does.
Well, the weather would have allowed it, but then something else happened, and as I'll explain in the next video, we decided to list the Duster up for sale. And someone came to take a look at that thing, and that led into a little bit longer afternoon than I had intended for. So I did not get a chance to finish the truck up and take it around the block, but you'll see that on the next video coming up soon.